Hey everyone, welcome to another video from 3DRedBox channel. My name is Mehdi and today I want to convert this simple model with texture to something like this. And we want to create a material inside Unreal to be able to change the picture inside the picture frame directly inside the Unreal Engine without touching the texture itself and going back to the painter. So let's do that. And before jumping to the video itself, let me introduce you a course for Substance Painter from beginner to hero level. Learning Substance Painter is easier than ever. Hey all substance lovers, texture seekers, and awesome future artists. Welcome to ultimate course for learning Substance Painter from zero to hero. Ready to learn how to texture with different projects? Substance Master released a brand new course for those who want to learn to texture with Substance Painter. In this course, we cover from preparing the model to rendering different projects, different challenges. If you want to level up your skill in texturing, come and check the Substance Master Ultimate course for learning Substance Painter. Welcome back to the video, and right now we import the model to the painter, baked all the mesh maps, and we are ready to go. And because we are going to use displacement and height map here for reshaping and recarving the model, we need to enable some setting inside the shader setting. Okay, so let's go to the shader setting. In here, let's just enable displacement and tessellation, increase the subdivision count to 32. And if your model is kind of low poly and you want to use this displacement feature inside the painter, you need to increase the vertex count on your model in your DCC. I mean the Blender, TS Max, Maya, or anything that you use. Okay, and we are good to go. But before jumping to the texturing process, let's go to the texture set setting. And here, I just need to add ambient occlusion channel because I'm going to add all the detail with alpha and displacement inside the painter. So there is no AO baked for those details. And we need to recreate all those information regarding to the normal, regarding to the ambient occlusion here directly inside the painter. So let's add ambient occlusion channel here and just create a base layer for our material. And right now, before going for texturing, we need to create some masks. And we are going to use those masks a lot during the texturing process. As you can see, we have two main directions here, one horizontal, one vertical, okay? And we need to create a mask for the vertical side and the horizontal side. So whenever we need to put some items here, for example, in this area, we are going to recall this mask during the texturing process. Or even for creating some surface like wood, which has a direction, we need these masks to provide a great direction, okay? So for creating these kind of mask, we use paint layer. I just give a name to the layer, create a black mask, go to the paint, and here I'm going to use a polygon fill because my topology is super clean, so I can select, for example, this area like that. And because we are using overlap technique for the UV part, as you can see, the both side of the model is going to be masked. And after adding this mask in this paint layer, I'm going to call that 1BM as a vertical mask and just create anchor point. Rename the anchor point with the exact same name. And for resetting the mask, I'm going to add a fill layer, put it as a pure black, and rename it as a solid. So the next step is adding another paint layer, going for second round of masking. And as you can see, I create the mask for myself on the area that I need and I want. And after that, I just rename again and match the name of the paint layer to the anchor point and just add another fill layer and rename it as a solid or separator or anything that you want. And that's it. So with this structure, I'm going to create all the masks and come back. Before going to the adding details part, let's check the masks. So here, as you can see, we have 4 different lines that we create with the same logic that I explained to you. So it's like that. I have this line, okay, the solid, the second one, the solid, the third one, the solid, and the fourth one. And whenever I need each of these masks, I can bring them with the anchor point to my mask creation process. And I did the same for the horizontal line. Okay, the next step is adding details on the surface. So let's create a fill layer here and name it as a big details and just add a black mask, fill layer, and I'm going to load the ornament here. So let's go to the mask. And as you can see, we have this ornament, and I'm going to change the UV wrap to none. Okay, and place it here like this. Okay, perfect. And let me just change the color to the red. Now we can see the position. Okay, perfect. So let's bring it up. That's it. So this is the position that I want. And now it's time to just disable the color, enable the height, and bring up the height value. And as you can see, it's super exaggerate. Okay, so I can go back to the mask and use the opacity here to control the intensity. Okay, and why I use the opacity as a controller here? Because if I want to create, ornament based on the height here, for each detail we need to define a separate layer, because the intensity that we want, it depends on the shape, the size, and the alpha itself. Okay, so the best thing here is to put it as a 1 and play with the opacity. And after that, if you need extra layer, you can create, for example, 2 or 3 layer to have your details on the surface. But right now, I'm good with 1 and just control the intensity with the opacity. So this is the main logic here. After this, it's just placing ornament on the surface. And I don't want to create a long video just for placing the alpha on the surface. So I'm going to pause the video. After that, I'm going to show you how many details I used, where, and how. But before going to the next phase of the video, I need to mention this. For this kind of workflow, you need to have a great, vast, and high quality library. So you can purchase our mega bundle for ornaments, which include the models, the PSD, as an alpha, and the ZBrushes with a great discount right now by following the instruction in the description. So be sure that you read the description very well. Okay, let's move to the next part of the video. Okay, now we are back and I add all the details that I want on the surface, and let's begin with the big details. So for the big details, as you can see, we just add the big details that we want on the corners, on the middles, and we just fill up the spaces with some single ornament here, and that's it. And at the end, I just add a blur filter to smooth the edges to avoid any kind of harsh transition between the alpha and the surface, and that's it. So I add an anchor point here in the mask section because I want to recall this mask in the next layer. So let's go for the next layer, which the name is Pump Out, and it's for this outline. I want to reform the outline of the model with using a mask. So let's bring this Pump Out to see the difference that we have here with Pump Out and without that. Okay, so let's break down what we have inside this layer. So for this layer, I just bring the big detail mask here as an anchor point, and I just bring up all the values here in the level to create a black and white pure mask. Okay, and I add a blur here, and after that I duplicate this layer and bring the duplicate one in the top section and change the mode to the subtract. Okay, so as you can see, we just subtract the mask that we create from itself from the blur version. Okay, so we have this outline here, and after that, because I don't want to face this situation, having these shapes here in the middle of the subject, so I just add a paint layer and just paint here, to remove the area that I don't want. Okay, and after doing that, as you can see, we have a pump out area, but it's too harsh and we need a little smoother transition here. Okay, so I add a blur here, and as you can see, this is the result, and I can increase the blur intensity or decrease that to create the shape that I'm looking for. So for now, this shape is quite good for me, so I'm gonna stick to the 3 as a blur intensity, and that's it. So without this layer and with this layer, we can see the shape is changed and the look is more interesting right now. Okay, perfect. So let's go for the border details. So first of all, we have this inside border details, and it's super easy. I just add this fill layer here with the ornament that I select and duplicate it on top, and use the mask that I create here in the horizontal mask and just multiply that to the fill layer that I bring. Okay, so with this technique, I just define where this pattern should be stopped. And after that, I just add an anchor point because I need to add separator and create the second line of the ornament details here. And use the same technique to define the area that it should be visible and add another anchor point, another separator. And right now I just reload this border V1 and V2 and add blur to just smooth out the harsh transition. Okay, so I did the same for this part with the same logic, same structure. And let's talk about this layer. Okay, for this middle border detail, we have another extra step, which is, okay, we add the line that we want with the ornaments that we think it's okay for this place. And after that, use the mask that I create here. And right now we are good to go. But before going to the next layer, it's very important to know we have a conflict and intersect with another detail, and we need to solve that. So I bring the big details mask again, subtract it from the details that I have here. But it's not logical to have this detail after cutting with this ornament. So I add another paint layer and just remove this area and add blur to have smooth transition. And I did the same for this side. And that's it. So we add all the details that we need and we are good to go. But before going further, we need to take another step. First of all, I add a paint layer with anchor point to collect all the information from the details that I add here to use that in the generator and surface material creation in the next step. Okay, but I need to add another paint layer here, and let's call it effect. And because we are using displacement and it comes from height, so we need to regenerate the normal information of these details. So let's change the blending mode to pass through and apply to all channel, and going here, add a filter, which is called height to normal, and just turn off this use word unit option and play with the normal intensity. And as you can see, when I add this filter, we can see the real detail on the alpha and ornaments that we add here. It's because before this filter, we don't have any kind of normal information from the height, but after adding this filter, we regenerate all the normal information from the displacement model, and we have this beautiful result. Okay, so add another filter, which is sharpen, and let's keep it as 0.5. Okay, that's great. So we have this model with this ornament, and now it's time to create the wood and the metal material for this part. Okay, now let's talk about the surface creation for this project. And first of all, we need two folders, one for picture and one for frame. And for the picture, we are planning to add this ability that we can change the picture inside this frame in the Unreal Engine. Okay, so we don't need to add anything in the Substance Painter. We just create mask and some details inside the normal and the roughness for this particular area. Okay, so let's add a black mask, let's add a paint, go here and just select this area. First of all, I just create a fill layer as a base to have all the information here and change the blending mode to normal for the folder for all channel. Okay, that's it. And now I'm going to create two different fill layer, one for the roughness and one for the normal information. For the roughness, we just need to have this roughness value, and for the normal, we are playing with the height value. Okay, so let's go for the roughness. I changed the viewport channel to the roughness, and right now I just add a black mask, add a fill, search about the fingerprint, and I bring one of these grunges. Okay, now we can play with the roughness value. Okay, let's increase the base roughness to something like 0.5, and let's go back to this one and decrease the value to something like 0.2. Okay, now it's time to play with the tiling. Maybe something like 3 is good and enough. And as you can see, we can see some information like a fingerprint touch here on this area. Okay, let's go for the normal. For the normal, I'm going to use a grunge mask, which is grunge paint scratched. Okay, that's perfect. And I'm going to increase the value to something like 0.2. So as you can see, we have some normal information here, but it's too rough. So I'm going to add a filter, which is anisotropic
Kuvahara, and after that we come back here and we can play with these parameters and just change the angle. Okay, perfect. And as you can see, we have details here and it's so much. Okay, that's it. And we are done with the picture area. And let's go back to the frame. So for the frame, I would like to have something like wood and some bronze material. First of all, let's add a bronze material from the library of the Substance Painter. Okay, that's it. So we have this bronze armor here. And now it's time to tweak the parameters that we have on this smart material. So first let's go to the base metal and just increase the roughness to have more roughy version of the bronze armor. Okay, and let's add the dirt. And inside the dirt layer, I'm going to change the generator to something like dirt, or we can keep this as a mask editor and just bring the height information that we collect in H+ in height channel and bring that as a macro detail here. Okay, like this, and we can play with this parameter here to create the details that we want. Okay, let's add some blur to that and perfect. Now let's talk about the surface detail, and it's quite good. And for the edge damage, let's go here, bring metal edge, choose the H+ as a macro detail input, turn it on, and just play with the parameter here. And in general, I'm going to decrease the wear level, decrease the grunge amount, and especially decrease the grunge scale. Okay, so this is the result of the mask. Perfect. And I'm going to increase the height. Okay, perfect. So we have the bronze material here, and we need to define the mask for this bronze material. So first of all, let's add a black mask, and I'm going to bring the big details mask and just increase the whiteness here. And as you can see, we have the bronze material on the big elements here. Perfect. And I want to add this line and this line in the mask. So we need to duplicate the fill layer, change the blending mode to the linear dodge, go back here and choose the second layer of the mask in horizontal and the vertical mode. Okay. And the third one in horizontal and the vertical. And as you can see, because I have the mask in the beginning of the texturing process, now I can use them without any hesitate, very fast and very efficient. Okay, so this is the bronze area, and now it's time to focus on the wood area. Okay, and for the wood smart material, I'm going to use another material from our library that you can find that library in the description. Okay, and this is the wood that I want to have here. And let's go to the material. But before going to the layers and tweaking them to achieve the result that we want, let's add master mask here, which is the first line, the second line mask, and at the end, the fourth line. Okay, perfect. And right now we need to subtract the big details mask to have this clean result. Okay, perfect. Now it's time to play with the layers inside the smart material. So first of all, I have this wood, okay? I need to duplicate that and just use the mask that we create here, okay? But we need to remove the vertical masks, okay? And we need to rotate this area. Perfect. And we can decrease or increase the tiling. Okay, I think this one is the best. And we do again for the V side. Okay, so this is the mask for the V, this is the mask for the edge, and we just create the direction mask for the wood. Okay, that's great. So let's have the same thing here for this layer, but here I just copy mask and paste it here. And that's it. So we have the wood base with correct direction here. Okay, let's load the other layers. As you can see, we have this curvature here, so we can reload that, use the macro height, the height plus, and that's it. So we have this edge rough here, macro scratch, dark variation, and inside this dark variation, we need the mask that support the macro details. So we need to upload this generator like this. Okay, perfect. And I just update all the generator that I had inside the smart material with the macro details option. Okay, and this is the result that we have at the end for the wood part. And I'm happy with that. So the final stage is recreate the ambient occlusion data here. So for this purpose, let's create a fill layer, call it as a AO+, choose the ambient occlusion, put it as a pure black, add a black mask, go here to the generator and choose the ambient occlusion, use the invert option, use the macro detail, load the H+, and that's it. So you have all the details here with the ambient occlusion added. Okay, perfect. So we are ready to export and bring the details to Unreal Engine. And for this purpose, let's go to the export texture. Here I'm using a custom output template as a UE5 displays, which is the default one. I just add the height map as a output to this template. So I have the base color, ORM texture, normal, and the displacement. That's it. So let's export, and it's time to go to the Unreal Engine. Okay, now it's time to import all the resources that I create to the Unreal. So let's press import. I'm going to import the textures that I create in Painter. For the ORM, we need to disable this sRGB checkbox here. Okay, now it's time to bring the model to the engine. And this is the model, and it's very important that we convert this model to Nanite support model. Okay, so let's bring the model into the scene. Perfect. So we have our model here. That's great. So let's create a material. I'm going to create an instance here and just apply this material instance to the model inside the static mesh editor. Okay, so let's go to the material. First of all, I'm going to use two-sided option here. And after that, I just bring all the texture that I create. Okay, so let's convert all of them to the parameter. And before renaming this parameter and putting them to the group and sort them in the priority, I'm going to connect them to the material like this. Okay, to the ambient occlusion, to the roughness, to the metallic. And as you can see, we can put the height map to the displacement, but displacement is not enabled by default. We need to select the material, search about the tessellation here, and just enable the tessellation. And it just only works when your model is nanite. Okay, so let's save. And before jumping to the viewport, I'm going to reorder this parameter. Okay, perfect. And yeah, as you can see, we have the displacement on the model and everything just works very, very well. And for controlling how much displacement I need to bring the material instance window, and here in the general and inside the material property overrides in the displacement scaling, I can edit this value. For example, if I put it on 0, we don't have any kind of displacement here. If I put it 10, you can see the displacement amount is super. And I think 3 is enough for this part. Okay, perfect. And right now we need to define this function, how we can set a picture here in this area. So for this purpose, we need to come back to the 3ds Max or Blender. And as you can see, we have a simple model, right? And inside the UV editor, if I go there, we can see we have this arrangement that we create the texture based on this. Perfect. But for placing picture on this area, we need to modify the UV channel in UV layer. Okay, so let's go for the second UV channel. And this is what we need. We need to feed the UV of this square shape. It doesn't matter if it's a square or something else. We need to just feed the full UV square here. And we just put away this other elements because we actually not going to use them in general. We define a mask based on the first UV channel, and we tell the material just apply the picture here and follow this UV to project the picture on this area. Okay, so creating this UV, it's super simple. There's no need to create the tutorial for that. So we just skip that part. And right now we have a model with 2 UV channel. The first one is the place that we create the texture inside the painter, and the second one is the place that we are going to use for projecting the picture inside the Unreal through the shader. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to export this model to the engine, and let's go to the Substance Painter. So inside the painter, we need the mask that we create for the picture area. And for this purpose, it's super easy. We just need to right click here and choose the export mask to file. Okay, and just give a name, choose the format, and that's it. We just export everything from the painter, and let's go back to the Unreal Engine. Okay, now as you can see, I have a mask. I have 2 pictures here that I want to use. So I'm going to import all of them here. Perfect. And inside the material, I'm going to bring the mask and one of these picture. And as you can see, we have UV input for the texture sample. for the mask, because we use mask that created inside the painter, we need to stick to the UV0, which is UV channel number 1, okay? But for this one, we need to switch the UV, and for the extra part, we need some controller to control the UV tiling, offset, and the rotation, okay? Perfect, so let's add the UV coordinate here. So I just bring the texture coordinate, change the texture coordinate to 1. It means we are using the second UV channel. And I bring a multiply here and add the node here. So through the multiply, I just control the UV tiling. And through the add, I just control the offset, okay? And another node, which is custom rotator, and you put to the UV, and rotated result to the UV is here. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to bring a 4-vector value here and just call it UV control. And I bring append vector because in the offset and the tiling, we have U and V tiling. We have U and V offset. Okay, so there's no single value. Perfect. So let's put 1 and 1 here and just rename them to U tiling, V tiling, U and V offset. Okay, so U is going to be A, V is a B, and that's it. And for this one, we can go like this. But in some cases, we need to change the UV tiling as a uniform one, not just separated in U and V axis. So I'm going to add a static switch parameter and just ask a question. Is it uniform tile? If it's not, we are going to use the same structure that we have. And if it's uniform tiling, we just use the U tiling here, okay? That's it. So this is the UV system that we are going to use here in this shader. And right now we need to add a lerp and just put our base color to the A and our picture to the B. And we use the mask that we create inside the painter here and just change the base color input. Okay, so for making sure that these are the correct one, we can select the model in the content browser, come here and choose this one. So as you can see, we have the result here as a preview material mesh. And for example, if I change something here like this, we can see the result is not correct. So this is the way that we can control the final result before going back to the level. Okay, so everything is fine. I just need to reorder the value that we have here. So let's convert them to the parameter, and I'm going to just rename them, reorder them, and put it in the group. And that's it. We are done. And as you can see, I just add a rotate value to this custom rotator, so we can rotate our material or our texture like this. Okay, perfect. And if I save that, we can see the result inside the material instance editor, that we have inputs group that we can input the texture that we create inside the painter, and we have image group that we can define the mask, we can define the image that we want, and we can control the image with UV control, rotator, and etc. And you can add so many parameters here, like controlling hue, saturation, contrast, sharpen, even creating some maximum and minimum value for the roughness and etc. Okay, like normal intensity and so on. So test everything inside the level. Okay, perfect. So first of all, we need to rotate this image, and we are done. And we can even change that with just enabling this image and just change the texture. Okay, perfect. So in this way and with this workflow, we can create a texture and use Nanite Tessellation inside the Unreal to just convert a simple model to something complex, as you can see. And we can add some dynamic feature to the material to make life easier. And that's it for this tutorial. I hope you learned something new in this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Don't hesitate to share your mind in the comment section. And do not forget to read the description very well. We add a lot of information over there. And that's it. Subscribe to the channel. Be creative. Be safe. Bye.